Previously on the Lorekeepers. My name. It is one that I awarded to myself. Light and darkness. Balance. You serve me. Lightning arcs across the sky. Thunder rolls. This sound is almost mirrored by the footsteps of 1,000 strong Silver Guard marching towards the wall of Kilgannon. The town that the Lorekeepers now stand ready to defend, with a mere just over 100 militia and refugees. Card, amidst all the distractions, the rain that pours down around you, and the aggressors approaching at every second. You are looking into the blazing eyes of Lyra. Her gaze now a golden beam. And then she doubles over as if in pain. And she says, I'm trying to fight it. Card, is there anything in the short moments before the forces of Advent arrive at the walls that you would like to do to see if you can help Lyra?
Lyra tumbles to the ground and he kind of cradles her softly to the earth, and you feel the pitter-patter of rain on the steel broadsword that hangs on his back because it's just too big to be placed on his hip. And he begins. He looks for the words, but he can't find them, as I am right now. But in truth, he has no idea what's happening, and he has no idea how he can help. But he's looking for something in her eyes, something to give him any sort of clue. What's happening to her eyes? Can I get a closer look?
Absolutely. You can see that her eyes are blazing yellow, just as Yardley's had previously. And
all right.
It would seem that Equinox has in some way managed to assume control.
Now she's fighting it, so
trying to.
Okay, I see. Yeah, well, Lyra said that she's trying to fight it. So Card looks around. He scans upward and looks around to see if anybody else is exhibiting these eyes.
Absolutely. You look around and you see that everyone's eyes are on the approaching forces of Advent that march ever closer. And beyond them, also you can see the Gate of Ghaele in the distance, and it is beginning to flare. And you can see strange, blazing silhouettes of light of some kind of creatures coming through the breach. But it appears like they're trying to fight their way through as if something is stopping them. But to answer your very simple question, no, only Lyra's eyes blaze yellow this day.
Okay. He actually looks around for taxes. Taxes should be near him somewhere, right? He looks up in one of the trees and psst, hey, taxes.
You see him like crouched on one of these sort of perches, these archer perches in one of the trees, and he looks down. What do you want? Now is not the time to be distracting me while I hunt.
Well, no, it ain't good timing. And he looks down at Lyra. Does she seem to be doing well again in her fight against Equinox?
Let us find out. You see her almost give like a shudder, as if battling some fever, and her eyes flicker, closed, and then open, closed, and then open, and you can see that the phasing yellow power is actually, because she rolled incredibly well, is dwindling slightly. However, Card, you hear a voice echo in your mind. You. The familiar voice of Equinox. We move to the front wall. Marius Hexenheim, you stand looking as Advent are almost within range of the archers that you have spent the past 2 days training. Is there anything you wish to say to them before the first volley is fired?
He's like walking up and down, checking everybody, like patting people on the shoulder, lifting bows up higher if they're off target. And he would say, these men, if you can call them men, are coming to kill you. They're coming to kill you and destroy this town. We cannot let that happen. Your instinct will be to run and to flee. We cannot let that happen. You have to hold this line. You do not shoot until I say you shoot. You do not flee until I tell you to. We will retreat over the roofs and behind the second wall, but not until I say. If you listen to my orders, and if we work as a team, we will be victorious. The old gods have decreed it.
And I would like you, Marius, to give me a persuade with advantage, please.
Oh, my lord. Yes, please. So that will be a 21 total.
Perfect. And as the forces of Advent draw closer and closer, and the hearts of the men and women around you are bolstered by your words, you see that Advent have come into range.
So I'm going to wait until they've taken 2 extra steps before I tell these peasants to fire. They're not going to be able to shoot effectively at the range that I would expect them to, so I'm going to wait until Advent are a little bit closer than I normally would, and then shout fire.
Your words echo over the thunder, over the rain. And arrows are let fly from the walls, soaring down into the ranks of Advent. You see a mass of them, almost as if they are clotheslined by impact. And what is worrying about this is that the attack is incredibly effective. However, the soldiers around those that have fallen do not appear to flinch at all as they approach. Now, for those of you watching, we have pre-rolled initiative, and this is where we're going to begin that order. Azarax, what do you wish to do?
I imagine that as this first volley of arrows is fired, Azarax is distracted. He's looking down. He's looking into the pages of Grimm, the grimoire, this ragtag group of heroes, our only true companion. And I think that he in the moments before the approach of the Silver Guard, I think that he's furiously having a conversation with him, saying something like, "What do you mean you're not in touch with the telling anymore? We need you for this battle. Reach out.
And you can hear Grimm's voice, and it appears like he's struggling with something. And he says, Equinox, he's trying to summon creatures from the telling. I'm having to hold them back. We cannot beat them and the Silver Guard.
What can we do to help? There must be something. I do not claim to have the powers that you do, but I am pretty cunning. There must be something I can do to bolster your resolve.
You're going to have to do what you've always had to do, Azrax. All of you. You need to inspire them. You need to let them know that the Lorekeepers are fighting on their side.
And I think with that, as he says that, he hears Marius loose and sees the volley of arrows launch off. He slams the book of Grimm closed and tucks it under his arm. And he stands up and addresses the archers. And he says, we fought against a seemingly insurmountable foe in Deep Lantern. And it was because of the resolve of my people, of the Drow, fighting together for a common cause that we were victorious. We can do the same thing today if we fight together. And he turns and he sees the Silver Guard running forward. And with a wave of his arm, you hear him whisper the words on the wind. May it light, as I cast fairy fire on the motherfuckers who are encroaching. We see, like the baubles of the Drow falling from Talazon into Deep Lantern, green and blue and purple light begin to outline these silver forms, giving them shape in the darkness as they run forward.
And as you take a point of inspiration, Locrius, we see amidst the forces of Advent, like flares, these lights go up, illuminating them. And as more arrows are fired, you can see the targets are standing out in the darkness and are much easier to target. You are noticing that more arrows are hitting in the gaps between the armor at the neck and under the arm. Great stuff. Is there anything else you wish to do, Azrax?
No, I think that would take up his whole turn. That's it.
Absolutely. Marius, what is it you wish to do?
I will be roaring orders at the archers. Reload! Quickly! Knock! Loose! And shouting like that, trying to get them to work in a sort of rhythm and as a team. What we don't want at any stage is it just to be... It's got to be a wall every time. And so he's working on that most of all. He will begin chanting loudly to the old gods to protect him, to protect these people. And they will see that there is a magical glow that comes over his armor. These like ancient runes that swirl around some of his armor. He's going to cast Shield of Faith on himself, giving him a +2 armor class. And he's going to begin banging his hammer against his shield. The cover of the book that he took from the Mythoneum so long ago.
Incredible. And once again, the people that stand at your side, working as a team, firing arrows in a rhythm of death, bolstered by your actions. Is there anything else that you wish to do, or is that it?
How close are Advent now at this stage, roughly? How many do I think we'll get another volley in?
You will be able to get one last volley in before they arrive at the wall.
Seeing that, I will look at the archers and I will salute them with my hammer, and then I'll begin running down the makeshift stairs we have to the spear wall, and I'll stand at their side with my shield.
Perfect. And as Marius sweeps down the stairs, we move our vision across to the southwest side of the city, and we see nestled in a makeshift treehouse sort of platform that has been fashioned into the tree above the graveyard, Taxes, the Dragonborn. What is it that you wish to do, Taxes?
All right, this is the stuff that he lives for. This is his territory. He's looking up in the trees, and then he sees below. He sees these makeshift soldiers, these makeshift people. They're shaking. They're a little bit quivering. They're unsure of themselves as they hold the line and get ready for that first wave to come through. And you see this large dragonborn jump off the top of this platform and land in the cemetery. And his voice sounds like the beating drum of the shield and the hammer that Marius is just ringing against. And he starts to march down the trench, basically giving praise and giving bolster to the people around him.
Tonight, do not be humans. This is what he expects of you. Tonight, fight as though you are the last of your kind. I know all too well how that feels. I came to this place knowing that I was the last of mine. Tonight, Kilgannon will not have 100 men at its doorstep against a wave of silver. No! Tonight, you will not be humans. Tonight, you shall be dragons!
And you just see him start to just get up off the trench and just dig down deep, scimitars in hand, and just roaring at the top of his lungs as he stands in front of the cemetery. And all of the men that are in the top of the trees begin to move forward. They begin to march around the edges of the cemetery, but stealthily, quietly, almost like shadows, as they wait for that silver line to start to cross the edge. And as soon as he sees one footstep into that cemetery, all hell will break loose.
Chad, take a point of inspiration. That speech was insane. Yeah, you are rallying the guerrilla forces that are waiting for to come through, for the Silver Guard to come through the cemetery, and because of that rad speech, they're going to get certain bonuses when the breach occurs, because you know that it is only a matter of time. Card.
Yes.
What is it you wish to do?
So the last thing I heard was a voice inside my head that said, "You." And that's it. It hasn't said anything else since.
The voice, I don't know if I broke up or anything, because I see you is what it said. Yes.
Oh, okay. All right, great. You see Card's eyes flare as he looks up and through the ground beneath him, staring off into space and nothing. He stands up above Lyra, above Lyra, and he focuses on where that voice came from and pays attention.
So you're trying to ascertain the source of the voice? Is that am I
Yeah,
right in thinking
I assume, yes. He's currently assuming that Equinox is trying to reach out to him somehow. So he's trying to get a gauge on where that's coming from.
Yeah, absolutely. And you, it's almost like you're closing your mind to all other disturbances around you, and you feel something that you've felt your entire life. The power of the Lorekeepers that has run through your blood, thanks to your father's vocation. And while this is a remote power that is obviously can be used from afar, get an instinct like it's coming from the Gate of Ghaele, the gate that is about 10 leagues from the town's walls.
A look of reckless abandon comes across Card's face. He was never a Lorekeeper. He was very young when he realized he wouldn't be one, but he's got something inside of him. Just hearing the stories that his father would tell him, Fulgris the Mighty or Sharon the Hierophant, stories of monsters and heroes in the sea and the sky. But the story that always felt closest to Card was one that he witnessed himself just unfolding in the natural world. He looks just off into the distance towards a house that he once lived in that's now part of a palisade. It's some segment of wall somewhere, and it's probably going to be burned down before the end of the day. And he thinks about his mother and how she would collect rainwater in buckets. And one day he saw a mouse laying in one of those buckets, half filled with water, laying there limply. And he wondered, when did that mouse seal its fate? When was it assured that that mouse would die and its life would be snuffed out by this seemingly random event? Was it when the mouse was in the water? Was it when it jumped into the water from the ridge of the bucket? Was it when it decided to climb the bucket? Was it when it turned up the path towards his parents' homestead? Was it when his mother put the bucket out in the first place? Was it before that mouse was born? And this taught Card something he wouldn't realize until right now. And the only thing that manifests in his mind as he looks out towards that section of wall, and he focuses back on that voice, and he meditates on the fact that he knows that the moment Equinox snuffed out his father's life, one of them would be a mouse in a bucket. And today is that day. I see you too, he mutters under his breath as the pitter-patter of rain falls on his broadsword.
And as you take a point of inspiration, Barker, as you are saying those words in your mind, I see you too, you look to the distance and you see a volcanic flare of light erupt from the Gate of Ghaele, as if something is trying to push its way into reality. But it does not happen quite yet. Grim is still holding fast. There is another volley, the final volley from the archers, from the walls into the line of advent before they reach their mark. You can see moving through their ranks are a number of heavier set individuals that wear this silver armor, bearing a vast battering ram. And they begin to slam it bodily into the reinforced gate. As they do so, you, Marius, note that a number of individuals flanking these battering ram troops bear crossbows, and they unleash. You watch from by the spear line as a number of the archers that stand on the wall take crossbow bolts to the chest and throat. With screams, they fall to the ground. But you note that most of the targets that had been aimed for were able to duck behind the rudimentary wall and defenses that you have erected to defend against this insurmountable force. There is a boom as the battering ram smashes once, boom twice, boom 3 times into the gate. For any of you watching, you can see that half of this contingent, straight down the middle, move using the wall as cover almost, so they're out of the direct arc of the arrow fire, moving to the southwestern position of the town. And they spy something that they believe to be a weakness in the wall, a weakness that will lead them into the graveyard, and with hatchets and crowbars, tools of all different natures, they begin working at the wall. We are back to the top of the round. Marius Hexenheim, you are hearing boom as the battering ram slams once again into the main gate. What do you do?
I have to deal with that. I cannot let it stand. And so Marius looks at the spearmen behind him, and he says, "Wait here." He goes and climbs up to where the archers were again. He's got a shield over his head, the runes swirling about his armor. He's going to leap off the wall and try and land among the men with the ram.
Holy Christ. Okay. Did not expect that. Very well. Marius Hexenheim leaping over the gatehouse. I'm not going to ask for an athletics check because that's just badass. You land amongst them and you see that 6 burly silver guard, larger than most, are the ones bearing this heavy battering ram, are sort of looking at you in a confused, surprised nature. No one would have expected this, including the DM. What do you do?
"We are the ones who keep the lore," I say as I lift the hammer and cast Thunderous Smite on the ram, trying to destroy it.
Holy Christ. Okay, roll to attack.
Yes, sir. So it is a +7, so an 18 to hit the ram.
Yeah, easily. Yeah.
Excellent. I'm going to use my Thunderous Smite. I'm going to use my Wrath of the Witch Hunters, actually. Is a much better idea.
By all means.
Let's wreck this ram. Okay, so sorry, I should have rolled this previously, but I wasn't sure.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Okay, and then it's 2 of these. 24 damage, thunder damage. The ram needs to make a strength save or fly 10 feet away.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what, the people holding it will make the strength save. What is it? What's the DC, sorry?
It is a DC 14 strength save.
Okay, as the critical fail, I would like you to tell me exactly how you destroy the ram, and whatever is left of it flies into the host that is before you.
So there's like this funk as Marius lands in his plate and begins walking almost casually towards the ram. Most of the Advent soldiers don't understand what's happening. They couldn't have expected this to happen. He walks over and he can see this one particularly burly Advent soldier holding the ram. He just moves him out of the way, smashing his head to the side of the shield. He lifts the hammer and swings it upwards. And as he swings it, you can see all these runes dance around the top of it. And there's this, for a second, you can see this shadowy image of the witch hunter emblem that he still wears around his throat. Energizes and he swings upwards, and out of nowhere the wood splinters and shatters, flying up into the air, ting, 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 hitting Advent Silver Guard everywhere against their armor. as the men around hit the ground from the shockwave. He looks around. He's broken the ram, but he's outside the walls facing 1,000 men. And so he rolls his shoulders, lifts his shield, and waits.
And just before you wait, Lloyd, as it is a critical fail, I would like to punish them a little bit further. I would like you to roll for me a d10, please, and tell me the result.
Gladly. A 9.
9 Silver Guard receive shrapnel to the throat and heart and faces and eyes from the ram as the Wrath of the Witch Hunter power just sends whatever is left of this ram into killing people outright from the impact. But then, yeah, absolutely, you stand weapon and shield raised as a wave of silver begins to rush you. For all of those concerned by this, you have until it's Advent's turn to stop them from butchering Marius, because there is a lot of them. I believe that takes us to Azarax.
I imagine that Azarax is standing there. He's not a man of war, but he has this resolve, fighting with his friends and having all of these people launching their arrows. These people who just learned to fire a bow not 3 days ago. But he is just as baffled as they are, as Marius leaps, throwing caution to the wind, leaps through the air, smashing the ram. His first thought is to say, I imagine he says it out loud, but perhaps not many people, "God damn it, Marius." As he sees this ram explode, it's unbelievable. It's as if he's unstoppable until the Silver Guard pick themselves up and begin to encroach upon him. Marius is a true warrior, but there's no way he can stand against 1,000 men. On the other side of the wall, Azarax, under his breath, spins his wand around in his fingers, and as quietly as possible utters an incantation. And it probably takes Marius by surprise as much as everyone else, as around him this ring of glowing blue light lifts him from the ground up into the air in front of this encroaching force, as I cast levitate to bring this motherfucker back up on the wall.
Yes.
Oh my god. And literally as this wave of silver comes to slaughter Marius, you're ready for this. You even have your hammer like half raised to make another attack, and you find yourself being lifted into the air, and you look into the visors of all these Silver Guard as you remember their terrifying helms. All you can really see of them are their eyes, and their eyes are widened in horror as this fell dreadlord has smashed their siege equipment and then lifted into the air by some dark force. Fantastic. Is there anything else you'd like to do, Azarax?
I think nothing else, except I imagine that he's like right up on the wall as Marius lifts up. He's like, "Don't you dare fucking pull some shit like that again. You need to live and lead these men, you son of a bitch."
I'm going back down.
That's it, though. That's it. That's the end of my turn, yeah.
Amazing. And I know I understand that actually went with Marius before Azarax that time, so apologies about that. But it is now Tax's turn. And Taxes, you are looking across the graveyard that you understand to be a sea of traps awaiting Advent. And you are seeing the carefully, slightly weakened area of the wall that Advent are taking advantage of hacked away. And you can see that it is very soon, basically on their turn, they're going to start moving through there. Is there anything else that you'd like to do in preparation before those forces make it into the graveyard?
I think at this point, Taxes is in hunter mode, but he looks to Card, because this is not a solo mission at this point. This is a team coordinated effort, you know, and so he looks to Card, and he just stares at him. He says, "Are you ready for this? Because they're gonna come through that wall here in about a minute."
Card looks up to Taxes and replies, "I was born ready for this, but you need to wait for my signal."
Putting me on a leash, are you? Fine.
I want you to set the whole graveyard on fire before the battle gets started.
Do you want me to set the graveyard on fire?
No.
Oh, okay. I was confused. I heard that wrong. All right.
And he looks around and he says, "Your people are feisty from that dragon speech."
And he looks to you.
They're your people, Card. I'm just here for the ride. Now, come on. Mount up.
All right.
And
So,
like I imagine like at this moment he takes a weapon. Barker, what would Card's favored weapon be? I mean, obviously he's got the sword that he would usually use, but what would be another thing?
No. His favorite weapon, he uses his broadsword more than anything, but his favorite weapon is actually a hatchet.
All right. So I think at that moment, there's probably spare weapons that are still like lying about the battlefield, this, that, and the other, hiding in certain places. And he grabs up a hatchet and he just shoves it in your hand.
Then go be a fucking dragon.
Actually, the look that you get in return, Taxes, is that of fear for a moment. But it softens into kind of an inspired courage. And so, yes, after that, he will kind of climb up into his position in his tree and just prepare. I mean, his idea, he's going to prepare for the people to swarm down through the graveyard. He kind of looks and mentally just imagines these soldiers flooding down through the graveyard, and the traps and such that we've set up. More of them are towards the inner wall, I'd imagine, so that the ones that'll pass us will fall into those first. So he kind of looks at the traps and just does a final check of the area, and then nods back to Taxes once he's in position, ready to go.
Awesome. So I think the Taxes, as far as his turn's concerned, if we're doing, he looks and he nods, and then he is going to head to the front of the wall, like where it's getting breached, where it's getting breached, and he's going to position himself to be like the first meat shield in the line of meat shields. He's going to position himself right behind the wall, right where it's getting breached, so that the first thing that they see is nothing but dragon bone silver just ripping through their flesh as they try to come through that wall.
So by that then, Taxes, I assume you mean that you're going to ready an action, so as soon as you see...
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So in that case then, you are hearing the splintering, cracking noise of the wooden palisade being sundered by a number of the Silver Guard. And you see a breaching hatchet just smash through the last portion of one of these planks, part of this wall together. And you see arms reach in to try and basically pull the whatever remains of that gap in the wall away to make a sizable gap. So you may take your attack with advantage, as he is someone is reaching through to try and pull stuff away without actually knowing what's on the other side of the wall. Poor bastard.
Don't.
Yeah. So
Nice.
Tell me how you cut off his arms.
So I imagine that all you see, Card, from the moment that he finished talking to you is just this serpentine shadow that's like weaving its way through the through all of the tombstones, all the tombstones, all the grave heads. You just see this like he slams himself up against this wall, and as soon as those hands come through, it's a clean sweep, just one and spurt just comes out this like, and you just hear a roar from the other side.
Try that again. I'm waiting.
Perfect. And Card, if there was any readied action that you would like to take as well, considering it would be your turn next, by all means, go ahead.
Was it just someone's arm that had come through? Like there's nobody else that has broken through the wall?
So at the moment, there is a gap that one person can now fit through, and you can see the mass of forces now outside. So yeah.
Well, I know that there's a huge contingent of forces inside the trees in this graveyard, and their success is actually bent on, reliant on the forces of Advent somewhat getting into the graveyard so we can drop down and do the whole surprise thing. And so he's kind of going to wait a little bit, and there's some people around him that he's going to kind of settle down. He knows that taxes can offer the right distractions and just kill in just the right way and just the right speed, and then disappear back into the shadows. He has full trust in his friend's capability here, and he's trying to just using only gestures so as to not give away their position. He just kind of settles down the people around him. So basically, I'm gonna wait until these forces of Advent kind of get into the graveyard. I imagine they're going to be running towards the inner wall. They break through. They think they've gotten, oh man, we found the secret way in, and they're going to run in. And at the bottom of the graveyard, that's where our guys have put a bunch of traps. So right when they hit that, we're going to drop down, and that's going to be my ready to action.
Perfect. So in that case, because them coming through, they won't be in range of the guerrilla ambush, but they will be. When they burst through, they will be subject to the trap. So what I would like you to do, Barker, I'm going to make a quick thing to see if they save.
Okay, cool.
They do not. So taxes, you're seeing that basically as this gap is then made, another larger gap is wrenched open, and silver guard begin pouring into the graveyard. Barker, I would like you to explain to me how at least 5 of them are taken out instantly. Kind of trap that's been prepared. It can be anything you want. Just let me know what happens.
Okay, excellent. So you'll see just like a flash, and you'll see the previous day, just many sweaty men, women, children, just everybody taking these branches from the graveyard and just stripping them down with knives, sharpening them and into points. And they're very, very slender points, probably about a meter in length, almost like small spears. And they're all bound together in one core central area. So it's a massive ball of just vicious spikes. And these have been placed inside a trench that has been dug right inside the wall. Just inside the wall, there's a long, slender trench, and there are just hundreds of these that have been piled up inside the trench for that first wave to just fall into and get gored on these massive, just vicious spike balls is the best word I can come up with them.
Spike balls, I love it. And you're seeing that spike balls. And as the initial forces that are breaching through the wall, taxes, you take like a defensive step back as they tumble over this trap. And you see almost like the forces behind them are just pushing more people people onto these traps. You see one makes a daring attempt to attack at you, Taxes, but then just vanishes as he steps on a lightly covered grave that has been covered up with leaves and dry grass and just disappears into the ground without... There's no mistaking that those forces are going to be sweeping through the graveyard. Marius, you are now on top of the wall, and for the rest of Advent's action, you can see that now they have seen that their ram has been utterly destroyed. You see a number of Silverguard moving forward with what appears to be bales of oil-covered pitch that they're slamming against the base of the gate, and within moments, this thing is ablaze. Flames are creeping up the gate. Concludes Advent's turn. We are back to the top of the round. We're going to who it should have been the first time round. So, Azarax.
I imagine seeing this this gate alight. Azarax looks down. He looks at the other men and women on the wall, lit from below, perhaps reflecting his own fear back at them. He turns to Marius. They're going to be in the gate soon. Should we let them come in and try to corral them? What is our move, Marius?
With the Gate of Flame, they'll have to charge to a flaming breach. If we put the spear wall right next to it, they'll have to stand in the fire to try and get through. We'll roast them there.
Okay. And you'll see Azarax, he gives a whistle like a... And I imagine that there's like maybe about 5 of these archers that Azarax has specifically handpicked. They're gutter snipes, urchins, ne'er-do-wells, young men and women who he handpicked because they're quick on their feet and they can think like a scallywag like himself. So he takes his small contingent across. He's going to take a dash move to get into a position and wait. I imagine that there's all of these walkways connecting different areas, right? So he's going to take up, there's like a certain shadowed area where he can see both the cemetery and the front gate before pulling back. And he's going to set up his contingent there, waiting to fire upon them as they break in.
Perfect. And as your scheming begins to come into fruition, is there anything else you wish to do, or is that it? You just holding your action until they come through?
I think that that's going to be it. I think that while Azarax probably in his mind thinks about saying something clever, he still is. There's a lot of fear that has gripped him. He's not a seasoned warrior like the other ones. And even though he's learned to fight it somehow, I think that he would probably go to say something and just not be able to and run off.
Perfect. In that case, Marius.
So the gate is aflame, and Marius comes back down and stands with the men and women of the spear wall, these people who he's been training for the past day. And so he's been telling them that there are different formations. And he says, second formation. And they, not with the satisfying shunk that he would expect, but with a sort of like clatter and clang, they managed to move their spears in a position that they're all holding them over their heads and as far ahead of them as possible. So he makes a wall. He stands at the middle, at the front of that. He's going to move right next to the fire. So the gate's aflame in front of him. If something wants to pass through that flaming gate, they're going to walk into a wall of spears, and Marius right behind them, or right in front of them, rather. So he would stand there, and he would just like kind of like roll his shoulders. He would look at the men and women next to him, and he would kind of like give words of encouragement. We hold them here. We'll bleed them heavily if they want to come through this gate. This is our home. And I'll just ready an action for the first thing that comes through here. I'm going to smash its head from its shoulders.
Perfect. So what I'm going to say is, as it's an inevitability that that gate's going to break down and those people are going to come through, Azrax is ready to action and Marius is ready to action. If you would like to make your attacks and what you're going to do, we will go back to what Azrax's ready to action was, then we will resolve Marius's, and then we will move on. So,
fantastic. So I imagine as we see the gate, the gate is smashed open, right?
yeah, so you see that it is naught but crumbling embers now, bits of wood on fire, and you can see silhouetted behind the flames the forces of Advent.
Absolutely. So I imagine that there's as this is happening, we see the cinders, and he turns to his small retinue, and he says, "We're not like the others down there, huh? We use our heads. Today we don't fight like dragons. We fight like spiders." He pulls back his bow, and as they smash through, he whispers, "Now!" as a volley of arrows shoots out from the darkness at the forces as they encroach.
Make your attack.
All right, so that's an 8 on the die. I have a +6 to my roll, so how about a 14?
Is just successful.
Just enough. Okay. So I don't know if this would be a sneak attack type situation.
Of course it would be.
All right, sweet. And I apologize. I was supposed to pre-roll damage, but I got a total of 8 points of damage on that roll.
Perfect. Okay. And I would like you to describe how not only your sneak attack, but those of your urchins and your scallywags also achieve what you have instructed them to do. Describe to me how you wipe out the first line of people making their way towards the fire.
Yeah, I imagine as he whispers the command, he pulls back, and we see a shot of the volley of arrows shoot forward through the darkness. We see it go over the heads of the spearmen there. The first round of people who run through fall dead, and I imagine we watch one spearman look back up, and all he sees is shadow and darkness behind him.
Amazing. And as those arrows soar and lay the first line low, Marius.
So I got a critical hit and a normal hit for 29 damage for the first, and a DC 14 strength save, and then the second was 11 damage. So I'm casting another Thunderous Smite in the hopes of knocking some people back. That's the mechanics out of the way. I think that you would see it like these fearless or maybe brainless Advent soldiers who like don't understand what fear is. Like you see this wall of flame before them and they just like march inexorably through it. And the second that you like pass through the flame, there's just this wall of spears. And they fall just one by one. And then one particularly large or burly silver guard makes his way through and he like bats a spear to the side. And the second he does so, this hammer comes with an upswing. And there's a crack of thunder as Marius clangs his head.
And he fails the save. I would like you to tell me how he and several others behind him go flying.
Yeah, so as I say, it's like upwards, an upward swing. Marius's favorite swings up under the chin, catching him like just beneath the chin. And this guy goes flying up into the air. He's bigger than the rest of them. He's one of the silver guard that were at the ram. And so as he like goes flying, he like grabs out and grabs people next to him, and a bunch of them go flying backwards through the flames. The Advent soldiers on the other side look, possibly for the first time, with fear as they see their soldiers being literally thrown back from whatever's through that wall of fire.
Amazing. And though, as you describe them as brainless, I mean, they are fanatical, and there's no denying that they are brainwashed to some extent. However, there is a significant level of fear now dawning upon them. The fire, the intensity of the counterattack is too much. Great stuff. So we continue through the initiative, and that would mean it is now Taxes.
Taxes is taken to hiding amongst the he's sort of taken to hiding and being very predatorial behind all of these tombstones. and he knows where all these traps that Card and himself have placed around the area. And so he's trying to like sort of navigate and almost corral these Advent soldiers into those particular areas, almost kind of coaxing them in to sort of follow him. So he keeps himself not in complete shadow, but just enough to where they can kind of track him and keep watch of him. And as they begin to sort of make their way through the graveyard, he is gonna try to sneak around and then get a sneak attack here or two, but also try to like get them in position for a larger trap.
Perfect. Okay. Mechanically, Chad, like, what is it that you wish to achieve? And I will make a roll.
So what I'm going to do is I would like to do like I want to do my move action, and then I want to try to do like a sneak attack. So I want to try to stealth away and then get them into some form of a trap that way.
Okay. In that case, then, you've taken your full movement. If I'd like you just to make a straight up stealth roll in that case.
Okay, cool. I will make a straight up stealth roll. 1 second.
Perfect.
All right, cool. So let's hold up. Get my character sheet. Where are you? Stealth. Okay, so 17.
Perfect. So what you notice is that you are there in front of all of these Advent soldiers that are just forcing their way into the graveyard, and the first target they see is indeed the towering pillar of Dragonborn that is Taxes, who is then darting between grave, surprisingly, unnaturally stealthy, and they give chase. However, as they, as about a dozen of them charge into the graveyard, little do they know that they are just charging into more traps. They find themselves unable to see you, Taxes, but they do see their impending death as, oh God, another critical fail from Advent, as I'm going to say half of their number. So tell me how 6 of these people are claimed by the traps, Taxes. All
right. So one of the traps that Taxes and Card have set up are like the swinging log traps, right? The night before, they have felled these large trees, and some of the men have taken to carving these large, almost battering ram size impalements, and then they'll swing from the treetops and then just collide with 3 on one side and 3 on the other. As they seem to like continually march through these cemeteries, they're heading toward Taxes. As he slides behind, he goes, "Let loose!" And it's just from the treetops, these 2 large hunks of wood with like the ends just sharpened to the brim just come and ram and impale 3 men at once, sending them swinging back and forth. And it's just a gore fest along the, along this cemetery. And basically, I just want Taxes to be standing right there in front with a grin on his face now and just ready to take any sort of ambush. He like digs his claws into the ground, looks at them almost on all fours, scimitars in hand, ready to rock. Just come at me, bro.
Amazing. And as the Dragonborn stands defiant as the forces of Advent are just smashed by logs, Battle of Endor style, we move to Card.
Card is looking downward, and he can't quite see these people in the forces of Advent moving through the graveyard. It's a little bit too dark just in this area, and purposely so. But his eyes adjust to the light just a bit, and he can hear them. And the wind meets his face as he drops down from the tree and lands softly on top some nameless crypt. He hears taxes in the distance yell in order, and he hears the wild screams of these forces of Advent who have been, they must have been utterly gutted by taxes somewhere. And Card smiles. He looks upward and he holds up 2 fingers and he swipes them downward. And you see just a mess of soldiers fall like rain to the ground below. And the roar of fighting and screaming and killing and death and murder begins to erupt around in the graveyard. But Card knows what his job is. The forces of Advent have filled the graveyard, and he knows that his only partner here is a man named Claxton Collins, a rich man, is always lived in Kilgannon. But now he's just down the hill inside his own personal tomb. And Card can just vaguely see the chiseled words, Claxton Collins, in front of the Lux bomb trap that has been set up the night before. Card Kilgannon grasps his hatchet, gifted to him by his friend Taxes, and hurls it with all of his might at the tomb of Claxton Collins and the Lux bomb trap that is surrounded by the forces of Advent, hoping to set it off. And I'm going to roll with advantage to throw this hatchet because I have a point of inspiration.
By all means, you're going to get it anyway.
First one was a 4. Okay, that one wouldn't be too bad. So I am going to, do you want me to do that strength or dexterity, or do you want me to choose?
Well, if it's a thrown hatchet, it would be strength. So go ahead.
Okay, good. Then the total is 17.
Okay, perfect. So I would like you to describe what this blinding flashbang explosion is like.
The air inside the tomb disappears. It's almost like there's a void in the oxygen. And the people around the tomb who are just immediately around the tomb are all kind of sucked in a little bit right before the spark. Just a tiny, minuscule second of quiet. And then the most immense explosion you've ever experienced in your entire life. The entire graveyard goes up in a blue and yellow flame, purple at the tops. Trees are blown to cinders. People are turned into parts, and parts are turned into pink dust. And the battle has begun.
And as the blue mushroom flower of the Underdark makes its presence known to devastating effect, Advent continue their mindless, relentless push into Kilgannon. Our vision moves back to the gateway, which is still ablaze. Marius, Azarax, you see a disturbing and brand new sight meet your eyes. 12 nimble individuals leap through the fire, rolling as they do so. They wear silver-trimmed cloaks. It's not difficult for you to tell that these are like Cast Drow, recruited by Advent, and are going to act as a dexterous attempt to attack the spear line, and they are going to do so. And to devastating effect, each of these individuals wield 2 blades. And like whirling dervishes, they begin cutting through the spears. Some of them fall as the spear line get to react as well, waiting for more people to push through the breach. But they are being surprisingly effective. You can see behind them that the rest, the ordinary Silver Guard, are now battering their way through other parts of the wall. And you can see it won't be long before the gate is going to be swarming with their number. The graveyard, however, is another story. A macabre, beautiful moment. There is a deafening silence. Then the debris begins to land. Gravestones, bits of blasted tree and wall soar out of the sky, smashing down upon both your forces and Advent alike. Dexterity saving throws for taxes and card, please. Okay, so taxes, you are able to serpentine out of the way and duck beneath a blasted crypt as one of those huge log traps that you had erected basically just clatters down and you are able to just move out of the way. Card, you take 4 points of bludgeoning damage as just a shard of rock grazes you across the top of your head. We are back to the top of the round. Azarax, you see that after this round, the gateway and everywhere around this particular area is going to be swarmed by Advent. You are also seeing these light cast drow to cut their way with dexterous actions into the spear wall. What do you do?
I imagine that seeing everything go on at once, this mushroom cloud of blue light from the Lux Bomb and the light cast drow diving through enemy lines, cutting down our forces with practiced precision. I imagine his hand would go to his side, to his satchel, where he's looking for a Lux Bomb of his own, but I think that they were all used. Did we use them all for that big explosion?
Yeah, I imagine so. As I recall, Taxes gave all of the Lux Bombs to Card. I could be wrong, but I
was expecting. There are 6 of those tombs.
Yeah.
No, I don't know if that's the case.
No,
That's totally up to you, Rob.
So I gave 2 to Card to do as he wished, and then I gave 2 to my, and then I had 2 to myself. I had 4 left, so I had 2 that I placed, and then 2 that he placed, so that we could both spread it amongst the. However, I would not put it against you that you may have one, and that's up to Rob because we had enough to make a bunch of them. So
okay, so what I will say then is that yeah, absolutely, the ones that Card had, he was able to put with other ingredients to make the explosion larger. So in that case, whichever ones that you would still have, you would have. If Taxes, you'd like Azarax to have one, I will allow it. That's fine.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can take one there, brother.
Perfect.
All right, okay. If that's cool, if he has one, I mean, I would be fine with saying that bomb that blew up a bunch of motherfuckers, we used all of them. That would be fine.
I would honestly, I'd feel bad if I had any more personally, because that was the best explosion. So I'm not gonna take one. All
right, well, if ever there was a time to use one of these motherfuckers, it's on my own people. So Azarax would whisper to his silent retinue of snipers. He'd say, "Shield your eyes, wait for the boom, and then fire on the quick ones." As I imagine that they fan out, perhaps, only the canniest of eyes would see their silhouettes fan out across these catwalks, and he's going to launch that Lux Bomb right into the center of these drow.
Absolutely. Rage attack.
So is this like an improvised weapon, or do I get my proficiency bonus?
I'll say you get your proficiency bonus. Why not?
Okay, great. That is a natural 1. I have 2 points of inspiration. I'm gonna re-roll this. I'm gonna use. Can I stack inspiration? I forgot to ask you that.
Yes, I've been of the opinion that you can totally stack your inspiration. So yes, that's fine.
All right, I'm re-rolling that shit. That is another natural 1.
The fates have aligned. Okay, Azarax, I'm afraid. As you take this Lux Bomb out, you reach back to get a nice arc on the throw, and some fire and debris from the gate flickers over. The Lux Bomb detonates in your hand. Oh,
Absolutely. I imagine Azarax looks down right at the most inopportune moment, and even through the visor of Veritor, his vision just goes pure white, blinded by it.
Absolutely. So you're going to be blinded, I'm afraid, for, oh God, 2 rounds.
Ouch. Okay.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Can you make a Constitution saving throw, please? I'm breaking my own rules here. Please make a Constitution saving throw. If you
I can
fail
try.
If you fail it, then...
Was the DC a 7? Because otherwise I failed.
You fail, you're blinded for 2 rounds, and it's like a flashback, like... in your ears as this concussive blast has basically robbed you of your senses. And your contingent go to help you and start pulling you back, seeing the devil. In fact, hang on a second. They should probably make the save as well. I don't mean to be too harsh, but they were right next to you. Oh God! So, so half of them are also have been affected. So whatever remains of the urchins are also doing their best to help who have been blinded for 2 rounds. I'm afraid. Azarax. Oh my goodness me!
Bad news.
Bad news. Marius, it is your turn.
So I guess I hear that like behind me of the Lux Bomb going off, but I can't look. There's drow everywhere. There's Silverguard rushing in through the gate, and I'm more worried about the drow than I am about the Silverguard. I think the spearmen can at least hold against some of these Silverguard, but it's the drow that I'm worried about. And so I'll step out of the formation and just like look around and see if I can spot one. And finding one, I'll just rush over it and try and knock it, him or her down with my shield onto the ground.
Perfect.
That is going to be a. Do you want me to make an attack or an athletics?
Oh, yeah, actually, that's a good point. Make an opposed athletics then, absolutely.
Okay, that is going to be super high. It's going to be 23.
Yeah, easily. So you smack. Well, tell me.
Yeah, he just like spots one, and he sees the drow with his 2 swords, kind of like looking, searching for like an easy target. And he doesn't spot Marius till the last second. He's just like this train that smashes boom with the shield into the drow, knocks it onto the ground, and the hammer follows immediately afterwards. And the hammer is a 19 to hit.
Connects.
Excellent. That is going to be 11 points of bludgeoning damage.
Amazing. And you smash this drow to the ground, and then yeah, tell me how you kill it.
Yeah, so it's been smashed to the ground. Marius like takes his plated foot and like stomps it onto the drow's knee. There's like a crack. He lifts the hammer up and just quickly smashes the skull. It cracks and paints the ground with blood as he like pulls it back up.
And as Azarax is otherwise indisposed, it is really down to you, Marius, at this point. As I explained to him as well, you see that, you know, by their turn, Advent are going to be able to swarm into this area. You're not going to be able to hold this for much longer at all. So if there's anything you'd like to tell them to do, it's up to you.
Hold the line.
Hold. Very well. And with that, our vision moves to the southwest section of the town of Kilgannon. Taxes, it is your turn.
Taxes takes advantage of this sort of scattered, just completely obliterated now hunting space, right? There's probably smoke in the air. There's probably there's probably debris that has just been scattered everywhere. And so he takes advantage of this, and he's going to throw caution to the wind. I imagine that he calls for, you just hear this like grunt, and just like Card said, there's like signals, there's things that they do now, and he just gives a growl. And immediately, as soon as he gives that growl, you see that he had placed himself right on a trench line, and a bunch of the spearmen that were hiding in this trench line come arcing up. And I imagine it's like that the Dothraki cavalry run, where they just sort of start to swarm areas. It's just men with shields and spears in this small area, and him coming in forward. They're going to just try to swarm and attack anything and everything in that small area as they're all disoriented.
Perfect.
Okay, that one. First attack is gonna make it. Okay, so it's a 19 plus 7 to 26.
That hits.
And then first damage. Oh, sweet! I rolled max damage on the first one. That's awesome. So that'd be 12 on the first hit. Crap. The second one is going to be a 21, and I'm only going to get 3. And then the third is going to miss for mine. So I imagine however you want to break that up.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're able to basically, because of the disorientation that the Lux Bomb devastation has caused, you're able to basically hack your way through more Advent forces. But you're noticing something peculiar. The advance seems to be slowing. You can hear beyond the front lines, you can hear orders being barked to the soldiers, but you can't fully make out what is being said to them. Is there anything else you can do, or is that it, Taxes?
Right now, that's all that I'm gonna do. I'm gonna use that as my action, and I feel like now it's just a swarm of bodies just attacking everything. I could take an extra attack if I wanted to. I think actually, let me take a look. I might do that while I'm at it, and then just use that to kind of push them into a trap.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to take the bonus action, and I'm going to take my bonus action from my rage, and then I'm going to sort of use that to push, using my forces, we're going to push them back into another trap. So I'll take that. And, 14? 14 to hit.
So you're beginning to notice, oh no, that is just successful. So you are actually able to just push them back into, I'm going to say, one of those trenches lined with spike balls, as they were described earlier.
Awesome.
Yeah, perfect.
So that'll be a total of 10 damage then on that one.
Nice. Okay. Okay. And Card, you're looking around, you're seeing bodies fresh and bodies old, turfed from the graves as the explosion ripped across this graveyard.
Yeah, when the explosion happened, you'd see Card was smiling and then immediately surprised, and he kind of fell to the knee on top of the crypt that he was standing on, and but the northern side of the crypt gave out because of the explosion, and he went tumbling down, and he fell next to this skull of someone who was in a worse position than he was. And for a moment, he coughs and spits the cremation ash out of his mouth, and there's silence, and there's rubble that begins to fall, and bones, and Like you said, a headstone falls and smashes that skull that was right next to him. He surprises him for a moment. But then he stands up and he lets out a breath, and he pulls the long kitchen knives, the butcher's knives, out of his boots. And he remembers that there's more out there as he looks over to the fence that the forces of Advent are pouring in through. And he remembers that war is an endurance sport. And he breathes out nice and easily and reminds him to pace himself as he moves to a member of Advent and just takes both knives and in a cross-cutting form just slices on their neck. And I'm going to use an action surge and attack a second person. So I'm going to roll 2d20s if that's okay, with 2 sets of damage.
Perfect.
Awesome. Okay, great. So that is a 20 to hit on one die and 25 to hit on the other. That is assuming those hit the first. Do they both hit?
They do indeed. Yes.
Okay, excellent. Then that would be 6 damage on one, and no, I'm sorry, 5 damage on one and 2 damage on the other, just with kitchen knives.
And yeah, explain to me how you just execute these two.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would leave Card would leave the kitchen knives, both of them, inside the chest of the second guy, and he would take that guy's halberd. He would just rip it from his grasp and arm himself with that if I could.
You absolutely can, and that is the signature weapon of the Silver Guard. So by all means, you have a halberd in your hand.
Beautiful. And then the battle has begun. He breathes in. He breathes out. He breathes in. 2. He breathes out. 3. He breathes in. And he's counting his breaths while taking down forces of Advent.
And you're beginning to notice something, Card, as it is coming round to Advent's turn again. You fell one last Silver Guard that is basically, this one is all fanaticism has dropped from his mind. He is just a simple man trying to scramble away from you. His Silver Guard helm has flown from his head. You can see the terrified eyes of a man just wanting to get away from you. And him, you look up, and as you're counting your breaths, you see that no further forces are pushing through into the graveyard. Marius and Azarax, sorry, not Azarax, you're too busy trying to get your sight back. But Marius, you are noticing that no further forces are pushing through the gate. However, Card, you notice an individual walking through the gap into the graveyard and stands at the opening, clearly not daring to take another step into the death field that you have created in that place. And he's completely bald. He has no eyebrows. And he has dark, sunken eyes. And he calls across the battlefield to you in particular. This man is wearing robes. He looks like he would bear some kind of official position, and it's kind of a bit jarring considering that this is a battlefield. But across the battlefield, his voice carries this sonorous voice, looking at you and then to your men. And he says, if you give up the Lorekeepers, you have nothing to fear from us. Lord Equinox would parley with you personally. And then his eyes, his horrible sunken eyes, fall back to you, Card. And he says, how many more will you let die before you answer to us? And
Card knows the power. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Card knows the power of Advent, and he knows their power of persuasion. And for a moment after his words are spoken, he has a faint glimpse, almost a vision, of a mouse dead, drowned in a bucket. And he looks at the men around him, and he immediately says, "They lie. You know they lie."
And we shall see their reaction in a moment, because first of all, we're going to take a short break to say hello, everyone, and welcome to Performance Check. My name is Rob, and this is the Lorekeepers, Chapter 9, The Battle of Kilgannon. It's been going pretty intense so far for the Lorekeepers this evening. We're going to take a brief moment to do some very, very quick introductions, and we're going to take a short break. And to begin with, I think we should start with the It's Like a Dragon himself, Chad.
Oh man, dude. Okay. I am Chad Nick. Today I am playing Texas the Dragonborn. And Texas is no longer just a character for me. He is a persona, and this is part of my family. So God damn it, I just love this, man. I love this, Rob. You guys can find me on YouTube at Chad Nick, K-N-I-C-K. I'm done. I don't have any other things to say. This is super dope. I just want to get back to killing things. It's
Blood, lust, hunger for death. I love it. And next, we'll have Lloyd.
Hello, I'm Lloyd. I'm your LDM on the YouTubes, going like my theater company, Giant Wolf. I'm actually plugging something for once ever. This has been really fun. I'm going to tear the head off that weird-eyed man, and I'm going to eat his heart.
And not even cook it. It's just 100% rare.
Perfect. And definitely go check out Lloyd's theatre company. Excellent stuff going on over the narrow sea from me. Great stuff. And I guess as you're there, Barker.
Hello, I'm playing card Kilgannon, and I can close my eyes and see Marius's men just getting cut through as he screams, "Hold the line," and there's this epic music in the background, and they're just doing it and just going down no matter the cost. And I imagined Azarax is like the velociraptors in the Jurassic Park movie, just pulling guys under the long grass. And this is just amazing as usual. I love playing this game, and this has been a blast of a battle scene, and I hope that it does not end. I hope it ends only when this bald eyebrowless guy is headless and heartless. His heart has been turned into Marius poo.
Amazing. I'm loving how much bloodlust you guys have, and I suppose that's what it takes to survive in a battle like this. And finally, absolutely. Last but not least, our resident Blue Angel, the one and only Locrius.
What's going on, everybody? My name's Locrius. I love playing this game. This session has been awesome, like every session. I mean, it hasn't been like every session, but every session is awesome. I love this battle. I feel like a lot of times combats in D&D boring and kind of okay, let's roll some dice and do that. And it's something about the way that you do it, Rob. It's always engaging through the whole thing. So I'm having a blast, man. I love all you guys. I love the characters. It's just great, man. Every time we have a Lorekeepers game, I'm excited all day. It's awesome. Locrius Planetoid on the YouTubes. I don't know if I said that, but that's a thing. Buy one of Lloyd's t-shirts. Are you selling your t-shirts, Lloyd? God damn it.
If there's enough demand, sure.
Someone buy, I'll tell you what, put it up there. I'll buy one. All right, that's it. I'm done talking.
Hey, speaking of t-shirts, though, fucking D&D Deadliest. My boy Locrius, he's too modest to say it, but go and buy those fucking shirts because they're amazing. I will watch that YouTube for days because of those characters. It's awesome.
Yeah, just buy a bunch of shirts. Buy everybody's shirt, man. That's what I'm saying.
I was going to say, there's a recurring pattern. We always talk about t-shirts, so maybe we should set up some kind of Lorekeepers. If you type in Lorekeepers in in a checkout. You
Coupon code or something.
Yeah.
Because Barker's got
somebody get
shirts too,
my-
man. You got
No,
shirts too,
here's
Barker?
I'm not going to talk about any of my shirts until I get my Dyer Corby shirt. I still need to get my Dyer Corby shirt.
It's true.
You got to do it. I think Dyer Corby is the top seller. Actually, I think it is.
Oh, well, then I'm not going to get that one anymore.
I think it's tied with Frog Hemoth. So if you want to be a true hipster, don't buy either of those ones.
Amazing. Okay, guys, t-shirts aside, go have yourselves a quick break, grab yourself a drink, and for those of you in the audience, thank you ever so much for watching. Always great to have people in the chat. Feel free to whack in suggestions about how the Lorekeepers can continue killing people, and we'll be back very shortly. Thanks for watching.
Oh man, I was gonna say I was the first one back, but oh, you just like we were here in the same time now.
I know. Now you could have just
I know.
came in and started talking like you were the first
I
one back.
snuck in.
No one would have
I
ever
was gonna be
known.
like, oh yeah.
Yeah,
been
exactly.
super
And everyone, yep. And there would have been no proof. All proof, all evidence would have pointed towards you were the first one here.
Meh,
Jerk.
that's all right. That's
We'll just say you did that. We'll say you did that, so that we have this cool story.
That's cool. Whatever. I don't need to be first. That's right. I'm humble. Whatever.
Man, I'm glad that
I'm
Lorekeepers
first.
guy isn't back yet. Oh, oops. I mean, yeah.
God damn it, Lloyd changed his t-shirt. Did I embarrass you?
No, I put on a hoodie, which is we also got today, which is for the theater company. So
Oh shit, okay, let's
today.
I clicked on your thing. Let me see it again. Okay, let's see it. Oh, nice, man. That's
There's
awesome.
also like a wolf in the back. Let's see.
Oh, damn.
Yes, sir.
That's awesome.
Oh shit! I want one. I want one. I want
Merch.
one where to work.
Love it. That's amazing.
Hell yeah.
How are we doing, guys?
Great.
Fantastic. So, are we ready to get back in?
So ready.
Okay. Okay, so the herald of Advent is staring across the field of death at you, Card. And he says, you can save them. All we want is the four of you. We have no need for this backwater town. We're only here because you came here. Why not surrender yourselves and put an end to their needless suffering?
Blood and spit and rain it has dewed all around Card's beard, and he says, you and I got different definitions of salvation.
Indeed. But let me be clear. No salvation for you, Lorekeeper. But there might be a chance for the people here to live.
And then he will undo the strap on his chest and in one fluid motion swing around this great sword from one hand into another. And he unsheathes it fluidly and he says, you and I got different definitions of life.
And the herald's eyes scan the wreckage, and he looks over to your men and he says, well, what will it be? Would you fight until you are dead, or will you give them up and live? If there's anything else that you'd like to say to your men or anything before I continue, by all means.
There's a moment where, oh, go ahead. Are you talking to me? Or are you?
Yeah, so Lloyd just said any of us, and this sonorous voice, I should explain, is echoing around the entirety of the battlefield, so all of you can hear this.
Actually, my first inclination was to say if anybody at the front gates would want to go first hearing this, then that would be probably perfect.
Yeah, Samarius like hears the voice and he would like spit on the ground. He would like wipe some of the blood off the front of his hammer on like the drow that he had just killed on the fine grey clothes that he was wearing. And I guess he'd say, these are tyrants, the creatures of shadow and of evil, and there is no life under them. When I trained you last week, we talked about not one step back, not a single inch that we give up, and we will stand at this gate until we die. We'll die free, and that's worth something to me, and hopefully it is to you.
And I'm going to say that enough time has passed. This is out of initiative order. Enough time has passed that Azarax, that your vision is slowly being granted back to you. And at your side, you see that familiar golden glow forming around Grim. It would seem that the people that you are doing battle with are fully inspired and fully behind you to fight back. What's running through your mind, Azarax?
There are few things that frighten a drow more than sun blindness. The light cast know it well. So when Azarax's eyes are taken from him, when he sees that white, nothing but pure white overtake his vision, I imagine that fear and instinct take over. Imagine he falls from the force of the blast, scampering back. He can't hear, he can't see. He feels the parapet. He is completely confused as to where his surroundings are. And then the white fades to gold. He looks over and he sees that telltale glow. Perhaps the visor of Veritor saved him some of the blindness that could have befallen him. And he hears over the ringing, that high-pitched ringing in his ear, as it starts to abate, he hears the herald of Advent call out, promising these people freedom. And perhaps it's from traveling with his stalwart companions, he feels something well up inside of himself, something stronger than the fear, something stronger than anger. He doesn't have a name for it, but his voice starts coming out of his lips before he can think of the words to form. Freedom! You speak of freedom! These men and women come from a place of freedom. Freedom's salvation lies in ruins. Thanks to you and the lies of your master. But don't worry. It will all be over soon for you. It will all be over soon for you and your silver god. Isn't that right, Hexenheim? Isn't that right, Taxes?
You hear like a hoo!
Isn't that right? Kilgannon!
A smile crosses his face.
The herald can hear the defiant voices of Azarax and Marius. The roar of taxes, and looks upon that confident smile of yours, Card. And he nods. And he says, then you have chosen death.
Well, I'm not too sure about that. And he looks around, and he looks around at the cemetery, and he says, this graveyard has been here for generations. And these people who surround me have spent many hours defacing it in order to better kill your people. He points his great sword toward the front gate. There's a man over there that, and I know him well, the people that he's leading are not going to quit fighting. They will fight until they fall where they stand. And he spits blood out of his mouth from where the headstone of Rob Karen hit him in the jaw. And he looks back and he says, there are worse things than death. And he looks up into a nestled tree branch where he sees the yellowed eyes of Lyra as she struggles and fights, continues to fight Equinox. There are worse fates than death. And he grasps his greatsword in both hands and just prepares for the fight.
And the Herald of Advent responds by saying, either way, you will soon find out. And he gives a curt nod. And there is a cracking noise as more of the barricade, the wall, gives out. And the main host of Advent now pour into the town. We are going back to the top of initiative. We're going back into the fight. Come on, guys, let's do it. Azarax.
I imagine there's a rumble as 1,000 footfalls of armored men pour into the town. He turns to his retinue of snipers and he says, remember, just like we practiced, wait and then throw. As he waves his wand through the air, I imagine that there's this sort of there's like a funnel area where the guard are running through this front gate area that we've set up as what is soon to become a kill box for these motherfuckers. For as Azarax waves his wand, we see these ethereal, illusory spiders, 100, 1,000, weave through the air like they're running on water. As a web fills the entire cube, sticky strands crisscrossing the area, holding them fast. He whistles, and from the darkness, you see these clay pots thrown. His gutter snipes have been equipped with these pots of oil as they throw and shatter upon Equinox's forces within these sticky strands.
Amazing. And what save do they have to make?
That's a 16, DC 16 dexterity saving throw.
Okay. God. Explain to me what happens to them.
I imagine that so I imagine we see this from Marius's eyes, right? He's the stalwart battle commander, and while the forces next to him are probably holding their pikes in a shaky manner, he stands there prepared for the charge. They run forward. I imagine that they're screaming at this point, they were expecting to get through with the battering ram. So I imagine that their bloodlust, their fervor fighting for Equinox has emboldened them, running full tilt. All of a sudden, it's just a matter of seconds. All of these webs wrap them up. And I imagine like a twisted amalgamation of a toy maker's marionettes They stand there fast, clawing, striking, confusion in their eyes in front of this retinue of pikemen.
Amazing, and their charge is met with chaos, tangled, ensnared, and it is incredibly effective. However, the gate is now completely sundered. Vast portions of the barricade are just falling away. And although you are stopping a vast majority of them, there is still more Silver Guard pouring around the edges of your web, like they're going to crash into your forces imminently. Marius Hexenheim, you stand, hammer raised. What do you do?
If I awake and there's no pain, and there's sun and golden fields, and I see the smiling face of an elven child, I will know that I am dead. And I will rejoice in that fact. I will have given everything that I have, every last thing, to put an end to tyranny. And I would sooner die than live under it. And then he is going to rush towards the oncoming horde.
Take a point of inspiration. My God. Do it!
Got to rush forward, and he's going to swing that hammer. In fact, he's going to throw his shield on the ground, and he's going to draw a small, like, woodsman's hatchet that he's got at his hip, and he's going to go in with 2 weapons to kill as many as he can, as quickly as he can.
Oh my God.
Okay, so it's going to be a 21 to hit, a 18 to hit, and a 16 to hit. 3 attacks.
All connect against Silver Guard.
So we are looking at 10 damage for 1 attack, 9 damage for the second, and 11 for the third.
Tell me how you're hacking through them.
So having told the peasants at his back, these people who are not warriors, and maybe don't want to die, that he is going to go and die or win. He drops the shield. He actually hands it to one of the spearmen behind him. He says, hold on to this for me. And he draws the axe, and then he just begins walking, and then builds up speed and starts running. And he's going to like leap up into the air and swing both weapons, killing 2. The backhand of the hammer smashes another. And he roars in defiance.
Incredible. And as you smash against the line first, it isn't long before all of the men and women who have been defending Kilgannon with you crash into the forces of Advent at your back, ready to fight and die alongside you. Taxes, it is your turn.
Whew. Okay. Yeah. All right. So I imagine that bald head, that the bald bro that was giving us his soliloquy of whether we are going to fight or die, I go fight. I'm not gonna flee. I basically rally my troops, and at this point he can start to feel that blood pumping, that aggression building, and it's almost like a drum line. He can hear that sense, and he looks over, and it's just this like peripheral view, and he sees Marius drop the shield, and the clang of the shield goes against the ground, and he can hear it. And that's like when it kicks in, when he just goes full primal. There's no longer a sense of taxes being there anymore. There's no sense of being. There's just that bloodlust, and you see that grin come over his face, and a snarl. And I imagine anything in his path as he starts to charge forward to this gap. Anything in his path, he is going to try to rip through. So, however you want me to do that, I've already started rolling for damage. I got one more because I'm going to take all 3 attacks on this.
Yeah, just make your attacks, man.
Yes! The last one was a nat 20.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm just going to say, because of that, I would like you to explain how you just rip into about 8 Advent soldiers as you just make your charge.
Awesome. Okay.
Just tell me how it happens.
Like I said, he drops that hammer. The eyes go black. You see this grin come over his face, and it's just one after the other. And it's almost like he doesn't even worry about weapons, right? He does have the weapons in his hands, but it's almost like he's not even using them. It's a blur and snap of a neck. It's a taking his claw into the chest, pulling one of the, pulling them up by the armor, and then just stabbing it in the gut, and then throwing him off to the side and continuing to rush forward. And I think the entire time his eyes are focused. His eyes are just deadlock focused on this herald, the guy that was talking to Card. And all he wants to do is get to that guy, because if that guy is leading this march, he wants to end that guy and end the resilience and the zeal that they have for fighting right now. So it's just body getting tossed left and right, almost like a freight train just coming through the, coming through this cemetery. I imagine just gut move, and it's just nothing but bodies falling apart, and you just hear this primal scream at the end, just,
I'm coming for you.
Amazing. And as you make like that one last attack, I like to think that you actually pounce on one of the Silver Guard, bring him to the ground, and as you go down, a wall of arrows just fly over you and take out more as the ore troops from the graveyard, armed as with bows as they were, open fire and then charge to meet you.
Yes.
Card, it is your turn as your friends are crashing into the lines of Advent. What do you do?
Yeah, it was actually in. Now we're not all in the same area, right?
No, you'll spread out. Admittedly, yeah.
Okay, we're still in our sections, like the graveyard and the front area. We haven't. Okay, great. There. Anyway, sorry. Over where Taxes was, Card hears that wreckage. Taxes has energy levels beyond anyone that Card has ever met. But here in this area, the storm of steel. Well, war is an endurance sport, and the men around just slowly pick up their swords, and they're breathing heavy, and they're spitting blood, and the fighting picks up more slowly. But once it's up, almost immediately after, like a cut scene change, and everybody is wrecking each other, and Card is throwing a man into the fire created by the Lux bomb concoction, and all the while his eyes are on the herald of Advent as he's moving. My goal is I would like to get towards him, as well as I think that's where Taxes is headed to. He's got the same mindset. Let's cut the head off of the snake. And so I'm just going to be moving towards him while having my way with people with this great sword, just dismembering people limb from limb. And
Perfect.
He does so. Total to hit is 18, and that is 11 points of damage. So this is one attack. I assume I'm going to move up to this one soldier and just attempt to gut him bottom up through his spine. The entirety of the sword is just engulfed in his body, if you will let me.
Perfect. And I'm going to say, because of Tax's devastating critical, he was able to cut a swath through the line of Advent, so you can absolutely make that be the herald if you so wish.
Taxes is heading towards the herald, correct?
Yes.
That would be like if I want. Well, I'll leave that up to Taxes. I think I want to leave that to him. It was his idea first to go for this guy.
No problem.
So what do you think? Yeah.
No, absolutely. In which case, then tell me how you are cutting through the rest of them. Then you're taking this one guy out. How do you do it?
Oh, absolutely. The entirety of the sword is engulfed in this guy, and he falls into his friend behind him, and then that guy is speared by someone else in the battle, some no-name. And then there's a wife of another resident of Kilgannon comes up with a pitchfork and shoves it in this other guy's throat. So his blood is just spewing outward on Card, and Card removes his great sword from the body of this Advent soldier that he's just murdered, and he swings it around and is cutting the heads off of 2 or 3 people just in a row, all moving towards back towards the fire and the inner wall. He's kind of paying attention to how many people are in the graveyard. Now, you mentioned no one else was coming in, but how does the lay of the land look in terms of balance of battle power? Like, how are we doing?
So, yeah, as soon as the herald had given the order, more people had just started pouring through. I should have made that clear. They were coming through where the gate was, but also into the graveyard as well. In terms of the balance, it looks like that now, while you have devastated the lines of Advent, there are still much more of them than there are of you, unfortunately. But your heroic stand is having an effect. The forces of Advent seem in disbelief. There is some resonance, some power that the 4 of you wield that is turning the tide of this battle ever so slowly. But this is an endurance race that you're not entirely sure if you're going to be able to win or not.
The realization dawns on Card, and he glances at the inner wall, and then he looks back up at Lyra in the trees, and he remembers kind of the final contingency plan, the signal to go to the inner wall. As he's looking at this field of used traps and punji sticks, pits that are filled with bodies. They're no longer dangerous. You know, every sharp edge is covered with a person, and he looks back up to the trees and actually there's a level of fear in his eyes, and he remembers the trees that were kind of just periodically coated with this flammable fluid that was used from the last of the horses. The horse fat was used to create this flammable liquid, and he looks at this graveyard, and he looks back up at Lyra, and he knows that even that won't be enough to stop the forces of Advent, but it's a way to get everybody back to the inner wall. And he looks and he sees that people are getting that idea, that that's going to be the next phase in the Battle of Kilgannon. And he starts running towards Lyra to get her as she's fighting this internal force inside of her head, and it looks like she might not be winning. He's sprinting towards that tree, and he just runs up and grabs her. And his goal now is to get to the inner wall before these delegated captains have ignited the trees. If that's okay.
Amazing. Yes, you're just shoving away, trying to get to the tree where Lyra is. Absolutely. You are pushing your way through the thronging mass of death. You can just barely see taxes through the ranks of silver just going to town. You can see across the other side of the town, weirdly, that Azarax and Marius are doing their very best to repel the forces that are still pouring into the town. And it is now Advent's turn. I have made some attacks which are numerous. The only person to evade with not being hit at all is actually Azarax. You have not actually sustained any injuries whatsoever. From out of nowhere, taxes, you are basically ripping into another silver guard. You slam this individual against a grave, and as you're raising a scimitar or a claw, a crossbow bolt just slides through your arm, like impaling it completely. Blood goes everywhere. Another hits you in the gut as you take 24 points of damage. You're basically riddled with crossbow bolts. Now, you're in rage, which I believe that means that you take half of that, so that would actually be 12 points of damage, but still. also take 12 points of damage as you are rushing towards where Lyra is. A halberd swings out of nowhere and just goes straight through your side. You buckle to the ground, but you keep moving. You don't even see who made the attack. Amidst these, you are up close and personal with your double hatchets. And you whirl about, just smashing one into the face of a silver guard, and another, and then you just feel a blade enter your back. Another into your shoulder as you take 14 points of damage. Azarax, you are able to evade any attacks made against you. Why don't you tell me how you're able to keep yourself safe?
I imagine that it's purely his survival instinct sticking to the shadows and the fact that he's still elevated above the horde that's coming in. I imagine the arrows are whistling above him, but he's able to duck down beneath the makeshift half wall on these catwalks that him and his retinue are with. And I imagine that they're running from side to side, getting ready to pull back for the next phase of the plan. And I imagine that they see there's a little bit of a huddle up there in the shadows on the catwalk, lit by a torch. You can only see the side of Azarax's handsome yet predatory face, as is the way of the drow of his people, as he whispers commands to his retinue. And he says, "It is almost time. They're going to pull back for the next phase of the plan. Remember what we talked about. When they are in there, I will give the command. For now, fire upon them. Take out the quick ones." As he reaches over and pulls out an arrow. It's got the similar fletching to the ones that he's lit before, but the tip is thick and black. He holds it into the torch itself. The pitch lights up. He pulls it back, aims, holds his breath the way that Raylan taught him, and lets the arrow fly into the webbing, into the horde of oil-soaked Advent soldiers. Now, Rob, as per the web spell, if the web is exposed to fire, it will burn away, doing 2d4 points of damage. I don't know if the oil that my gutter snipes through would add any more damage. What would you say to that?
I would say abso-fucking-lutely, man. So I would like you to roll me 3d6 in addition to that.
Oh, damn! Okay, this is going to be a good one. Here we go. Where's my other die? Oh, I missed a d4, that's why. All right, that's 8 plus 4, 12 points of damage.
Tell me what it looks like as everyone entwined in your web, and I'm talking like 50 people at this point just go up in flames.
I imagine that we see the shot through. It's quite a long shot. We see this flaming torch, this flare. As it hits, whoosh, it lights up. I imagine that whoever's in the front lines perhaps sees the look of horror on the front of the retinue as the webs, the armor itself covered in oil begins to light. We see, it's like the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark. Motherfuckers' faces are melting as this entire thing, I imagine the entire wall at this point goes up in flames.
Absolutely incredible. Yeah, and at this point, the Silver Guard are not anymore just this uniformed, organized, well-oiled machine. Well, they are well oiled. It just happens to be on fire all over them, and they are screaming. They are dying. And Azarax, I think you've just got the most kills in one go for this round, at least. Excellent stuff. Marius Hexenheim, the battle rages on. You were just surrounded by people. You see to your flank that people are aflame. What do you do?
So Marius is a zealot at heart. He believes deeply in the gods, and he believes that they will protect him. He has the runes on his armor, their magic protecting him from most of the blows that try to fell him. He smashes one man with a hammer and he headbutts another with his helmet. He steps on the throat of another. He's just whirling all around, killing as best he can. He turns for a moment to the people of Kilgannon, the spear wall. He says, back to the other wall. I'll hold them. And he's going to take the dawn section and try and hold as many people of the Silver Guard here as possible so that the peasants can get away.
Very well. And mechanically, is there anything you'd like to do to cause harm to any of the others, or are you literally just holding your ground in a defensive move?
So dodge is an action, so I don't have any attacks that I can do other than that. Yeah. So that's it.
Perfect. And in a heroic, defiant gesture, you hold your ground as the men and women under your command begin to withdraw back to the secondary wall. Taxes. You are just surrounded by people aiming all kinds of different weaponry at you. Some of it's hitting you, some of it bouncing off your scales. What do you do?
This isn't the first time I've had blood on my hands. It ain't gonna be the last.
And you just see him, I imagine, one of the crossbow bolts, like, impaled through his arm. He just cracks it right off. And there's still this, like, grin on his face as he's just still swathing through people. And it's more like he's pouncing. It's more like he's dissecting them apart, using the battlefield to his advantage. And then I imagine that he sees this herald now. I rolled in advance and I got all 3 to hit for at least 15 damage. And so I imagine that's like one, he tosses one out of the way and he just sort of like slowly marches toward this herald. One goes out of the way, another gets thrown out of the way, and then it's just him and the herald standing face to face. And if you'll let me, Rob, I would like to try to pounce on this motherfucker and just elbow, stab, whatever I can, like right, just go at him like a dog to meat.
I absolutely love that. So let's take an oppose athletics. I believe you have advantage as you're in rage. Off you go.
You muted, mate.
23.
That certainly beats the 12. Tell me how you dismember this bastard.
For those of the Lorekeepers that have never seen the way that a dragon eats, the way that a dragon fights, this, that, and the other, this is the first time you've ever seen him reach such a primal level that he goes beyond being human to now that monster that he described himself as. At the very beginning of our journey, he was trying to run away from being this monster, this creature. He wanted to be a little bit more than that. This is not that. There is snarling, there is guttural wrenching of flesh to embers, and I imagine it's just he has just gone complete ham. He's lost all sense of ability to function, and he looks up, and I imagine that there's like these Advent forces all around him. He looks up, face just drenched in blood, and a grin comes over his face as he shoves a clawed hand straight down into the face of this creature, like this carcass, and he starts stalking forward through the hole. Like he just
Come on. I'm still hungry.
Holy Christ. Take a point of inspiration. Oh God. That made me go weak in the stomach. Goodness me. That's amazing. That's great. That took me back. Okay. So as Taxus is just butchering Card, you have made it to Lyra. What is it that you'd like to do?
I've also rolled my attack, and so you see Card running through this mess. Just a mess. Bodies everywhere. People tripping, falling on each other. People killing people who they mean to kill. People killing who they don't mean to kill. People getting killed by random people they'll never see or know. It's just an absolute chaotic mess. And there are two people in front of him that see him approaching, though, as he makes his way towards the inner wall and begins. He's kind of spreading the word that, let's get ready. It's almost time to retreat. There are other people who have that job to signal that fire, to light that fire, and he'll leave it to them. But these two soldiers of Advent wind up in the chaotic mess of fate, wind up standing in front of Card and Lyra, and Card puts down Lyra quickly and then pulls his broadsword back out again, and he fakes like my goal is I want to fake like I am attacking the one on the left, and then I want to actually stab the one on the right. And we can do that with a feinting attack if you'd like, or it can just be narrative. It's totally up to you, Rob.
At this point, I think it's pretty much narrative from here on in, man. Like, you can totally do that. Absolutely.
Cool. What kind of weapon does Lyra use?
So Lyra ordinarily would actually use a sword and a shield, but she is bereft of a shield. She just has just a long sword at her side. Okay,
excellent. So she's kind of still experiencing this almost possession-like qualities, right? The quality. She looks like she's battling with something that's trying to control her mind. And so he will fake left and stab right, and this sword just goes right through this soldier of Advent's throat. This other one will actually come forward with a halberd, and he would strike Card were it not for Lyra, in a moment of clarity, swings her longsword out and cuts him at the ankle. So he falls down onto a raw stump, screaming and wailing. And actually, Card leaves him there. He drops his halberd, and Card picks up Lyra, and Card, on his way out, steps on the guy's bloody stump as he begins running towards the inner wall, leaving him to tend to his just broken self.
And as you are dragging Lyra away, and as the forces of the refugees and the people of Kilgannon are withdrawing back to the secondary wall, Lyra looks at you, those eyes still flickering with yellow. And then suddenly, those yellow eyes blaze. And looking at you, Card, she says, "He's here." There is an eruption of light from the Gate of Ghaele in the distance. Upon the horizon, you see a vast, blazing line of yellow energy careening towards the gates of Kilgannon. I would like everyone to make a dexterity saving throw. Okay. Taxes, you are able to heave yourself at the last second behind a crypt. The rest of you, however, are not so quick. Marius, you're the first one to see this coming, standing there defiant, and the silver guard that bear down on you now that you stand alone, defiant, holding them back, stop as dust and rubble begins to lift into the air due to the oncoming approach. And they turn, and like you, they are thrown into the air. Marius, you and everyone bar Taxes takes 10 points of force damage. Azrax, you are lifted into the air and smashed through part of a wooden palisade. Card, you are lifted into the air and thrown through the gates of the secondary wall and grind onto the ground. And Lyra sort of tumbles on top of you and rolls away. There is a perfect line between what remains. In fact, there's nothing that remains of the gate of Kilgannon and that of the Gate of Ghaele. A blast of disintegrating power king through what remains of the defenses stands Equinox, the Lord of Advent. And that is where we're going to have a 2-minute break, and we shall return to the last section of tonight's game. Really quick break, guys. Just a loot break. Get yourselves a quick drink. We'll be back in 2.
God. Oh, my goodness. No words. But Jiminy Christmas.
Hello, people. We're back from outer space. This is epic. Yeah, I think so too. This is really fun. This is as awesome as I expected. I love battles in RPGs. That's my favorite thing in the tabletop role-playing game is mass combat. I just love the culminations. Like if you're playing in some sort of epic game and it culminates into some sort of conflict, even if it's not huge, even if it's the Fellowship fighting the Urukai, and it's something like that. Like that's cool. That's still just a hundreds of orcs streaming down a hill. Maybe not hundreds, maybe at least dozens, but that's still massive. That's huge when you're talking about 4 adventurers. A lot of people try to make these huge combat encounters with armies of tens of thousands, and those can be really fun, but when everything is scaled down a little bit, you realize that it's still that you still can get that mass combat feel with just 4 adventurers versus 100 orcs. That's huge, man. That's a 1-to-20 ratio. That's not good.
Your brain can't really process a battle bigger than that either. Like it just becomes like, oh, there's loads of dudes, but you can only see the chunk where you are. So beyond that, you're just describing a battle as opposed to living in it.
You know this, Lloyd, because you listen to Hardcore History, but oftentimes when Dan Carlin mentions like, what would that look like? What would Hannibal's envelopment look like? What if you could go back in time and bring video cameras? How could that possibly? It's like you said, you cannot process that in the simple mind of a human being. You got to be there.
Oh man, that latest Hardcore History about the Celtic Holocaust, man, like, whoa.
Oh, gosh, I finished it last night, and I started it again this morning because the final moments of the podcast, it hits you right in the gut. It's
so good.
So good. I knew you would like it, Lloyd. I was listening to it. I was like, Lloyd is loving this right now. So, yeah, you should all listen to it.
Definitely one of my favorites that he's done as well. Okay. Are we all ready? Okay.
Yep.
Yes, Commander.
I'm glad you are, because I don't think I am.
I am prepared to die.
Here we go. So, you have all been knocked from your feet. The wind has been taken out of you. Through blurry eyes, Marius, you look upon the devastation. You see that Equinox has no regard for the lives of his men. Those nearest the gate, utterly disintegrated. Those nearer you just blasted away. And you're struggling to catch your breath as Equinox advances into the town of Kilgannon. And you're trying to prepare yourself. You're trying to muster the strength to stand. But with every step, it's like your strength is failing you. Every step that Equinox makes, it's like he's holding back a wave of power and fury. And he walks past you. He continues to the secondary wall. If you'd like to act, by the way, Marius, by all means.
Absolutely. No question. Marius thinks about all of the lives that would be saved if he could get one lucky hammer strike in. And he thinks about all of the tactics that the witch hunters have. The spear tip, where you go and you kill the leader and then the army crumbles. And he sees Equinox walking past him. He feels like he's swimming through molasses. but he like props himself up with the hatchet and stands, and he swears to the grandfather who is death to kill this thing, and he's going to swing his hammer at him.
By all means.
Do it.
Okay, so because I swore my oath, that's going to be with advantage. And we're looking at a 19 on the die plus 7 is a 26.
You rise up. I would like you to tell me how you swing past Equinox's defenses and your attack lands.
So he's sworn to the grandfather, which is like his affectionate name for the old god of death. The real name is long and arduous and guttural, and so he doesn't use it often. But as he like lifts the hammer, he like prays to that god. Certain of his own doom, he swings the hammer thinking, if I die, but he dies, it's worth it. And he swings and manages to just barely connect with Equinox's shoulder, and feels vindicated.
And roll your damage.
I will be smiting.
I thought you might be.
Yeah. Okay, so
Then we'll describe.
it's going to be 21 bludgeoning and radiant.
And Equinox turns, that one yellow eye glimpsing you at his periphery. However, you are quick enough that your hammer meets its mark. You smash him across the shoulder. And he jolts.
I do not fear you!
He turns almost lazily. And he reaches forward with a hand. A gauntleted hand. And there is a blast of yellow energy. And from nowhere, there is now a glowing yellow blade that blazes like fire. And he attacks back. Your AC is 20?
20.
All three of his attacks land. I dropped that. Never mind. Equinox, beneath what I like to think would be your second attack. And this blazing weapon cuts through your defenses once, twice, 3 times for 37 points of damage. I would like you to tell me how you fall.
If I awake and I feel the golden sun on my face, if I awake and I see fertile fields and I see the face of an elven child smiling at me, I will know that I am dead. And Marius falls backwards. The hammer falls out of the grasp of his hand.
And you fall to the ground. Equinox looks down upon you. And then he turns around and continues walking in the direction that he was going. There is a as a blast from his eye disintegrates a vast portion of the secondary wall. And Card. You see him moving towards you as if he's making a beeline to you. Like he's known where you've been, like he's been watching you through the eyes of Lyra this entire time. Striding towards you. As you recall, you were thrown through the gate, you perhaps just still on the ground. What is running through your mind as Equinox approaches?
Many people believe that there's no greater personal connection. Forget the connection you have with your family members or with your friends. There's no greater connection that is bonded, fused between two people spiritually and ethereally than two people, one of which has saved the other's life, has stood up to the fates and said, no, this person lives this day. And Card Kilgannon has known for a long time, as he feels this pang, this void inside of his chest. He knows the fate that has begun approaching Marius. The man who on many occasions has stepped in and said no to the fates and gotten him out of many binds that would have resulted in the end of himself. He looks up and he sees the foe that would now be responsible for perhaps the deaths of two of his closest bonds, Marius and his father. But Card feels his bones ache. He's an old man now. In Equinox's eyes, he sees his childhood. In Equinox's eyes, he sees all of the might-haves and could-have-beens and should-have-beens in the life of Card Kilgannon. But here he is with a gray beard and an aching wrist. He rubs his wrist as he slowly attempts to stand up. We'll say that he kind of fails, keels over in agony. But he looks up at Equinox and he uses it, this fire that appears in his gut. He uses it, and this second wind emerges inside of him and emanates from him, and you see him rise from one knee to two knees, and from one to both feet. And he stands there, and he doesn't even pick up the great sword that's at his feet, because he's too busy staring into Equinox's eyes. And he can't bring himself to look away, and he knows he wouldn't want Equinox to ever see him look away.
And as you are rising to your feet, defiant, you make a mental note that the people of Kilgannon and the refugees stand behind you in the formation that Marius had so efficiently drilled into them.
Then I pick up my sword. Sorry.
No, that's fine. And but Equinox just stands before you, just short of you and those assembled. That still a large portion of Silver Guard remain behind him at his back. And he surveys the area calmly, almost casually. And then his blazing eye fixes upon you once again, Card. And he says, I assume it has not escaped your notice. Far from where we first met, Kilgannon. There is a flash. How could you forget? The night when thunder rolled and lightning arced across the sky like it does this night. Like the night your father was destroyed. It is the way of this broken world that a son must pay for the sins of his father. I can relate to that fact. And if you could get a hint of triumph from that blazing eye, you do so. Him looking down upon you and looking at what remains of your forces. Do you respond?
No. Card is doing everything he can to stay on both feet right now.
He continues to prowl around you like a panther, that eye still blazing. You can't help but think if you make one move, then death. But he continues talking. It's unsettling to you. You should be dead, but for some reason, Equinox is holding back. Could it be ignorant to the truth, Kilgannon? It is the only thing that would make sense. Could it be that Weaver, the master of spinning stories, told you one too many? You were a fool to believe the words of a teller of tales, Kilgannon. You have all been deceived, and his eye flashes around. He makes a note of the positions of each and every one of you. Yes, now it all begins to make sense. You have been suffering under a lie. What is it that the reptile told you? That I was born from the telling? I was not born from the telling. Indeed, the fear and hatred of all earthly creatures fills my heart. I am that made manifest. But I suppose he neglected to mention that I was not born within the telling. I was created within it. The Lorekeepers created me, card. It is an equinox when night and day, light and darkness hang in balance. The day the Lorekeepers created me was the day gods and men stood as equals. Real life. The next
words
life
was the day God. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No,
Sorry.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, it just this truth wafts over card. It's just this cold truth, and he, where the day gods and men stood as equals, the words just echo, and after a moment, card even he says, "You think very highly of yourself," he mumbles, but he doesn't quite comprehend what this means, but that's this is big news in the realm of Card Kilgannon and basically everybody else.
He continues. It is clear to me now why you were never tempted to turn on those Lorekeepers, card. The Lorekeepers overreached their station when they created me. By extension, Weaver is as much responsible for your father's destruction as I am. Now that you know the truth, allow me to extend you the choice you were never given. You and your allies have proved most competent. Join Advent, serve me, and we shall eradicate the lies that you were told by the Lorekeepers.
Is it Card Card knows this is the truth, right? I mean, is it almost like it makes too much sense?
It does make an awful lot of sense, unfortunately.
Yeah. And that comes across his face in the form of anger. And he glances around, and I think he sees Taxes. But Taxes is the only other Dragonborn he's seen other than Weaver, and that anger appears in his stomach. Because he begins to put together what that means. That the Lorekeepers, people like Weaver, people like his own father, created this menace that ended up being the fletching on the arrow that destroyed them. And where do you put that blame? What snowflake in an avalanche wants to claim responsibility for something like that? What can? But in the chaos of this moment, the only manifestation is anger. And he wishes Weaver right here, right now.
It's like Equinox is reading this across your face. That yellow eye scanning you. This revelation has not escaped the ears of either Azarax and Taxes. Maybe even in a far-off reverie in his unconscious form, Marius. Maybe it echoes in your mind too. Or maybe you're just seeing green fields at this point. It's too hard to tell. How are you reacting?
Were you asking one of us specifically, or Marius, or any of us?
Yeah, you, Azarax. Go ahead.
I imagine that Azarax was blasted off of the wall. He's barely coming to consciousness. Perhaps just in time to see Marius fall. Back behind the final wall there, he sees this exchange and hears this revelation that our nemesis has just uttered. And I imagine pushing off some debris from him. He stands up, brushing himself off. And in the silence that hangs in the air, with his wand in one hand and the grimoire in the other, he shakes his head. He sees that burning yellow eye. And he dares to speak. You ask that we join you, like your retinue of silver guard here, like the hundreds of silver guard that you destroyed with a blast of your eye. You dare to ask us to join you? You speak of the days when men walked with gods. Well, today, men walk with drow and with dragons. The only gods I see here, I have heard of this day, were uttered by a brave man, Marius Hexenheim. But I see beside me and behind me quite a few men, ready to fight until the last. And quite honestly, I've not been a Lorekeeper for very long. I don't know what the fuck the previous Lorekeepers were thinking, making something like you. But I know that we were put here to end you. So, I would give an offer not to you, you piece of shit, but to the silver guard behind you. We are the Lorekeepers. You have seen what we can do. And quite frankly, we are your last hope, unless you want to live your entire life. If you want your children to grow up in fear at the behest of this fucking thing, that's what you are, Equinox, right? You're a fucking thing. You're not a man. You're not a god. You're a fucking bad story. Isn't that right? And if you don't like what I have to say, strike me down. Blast me with your eye. Show everyone your power.
And Equinox turns that yellow eye blazing and says, if you insist.
With a flash! Azrax holds out Grim in front of him. There's a flash in his eyes. He is sunblind again. Back to when he was a young man, deep beneath the earth in the dungeons. He hears a voice, a familiar voice, the voice of Belshazzar, the voice of his teacher, who taught him the ways of wizardry while they were incarcerated in the dungeons. What is the third law of abjuration, my boy? Ah, you crazy old man, you think I can learn your ways? You don't even have a fucking spell book. I may be old, but my mind is keen, and I tell you, I will have a disciple, and the gods have put you here to learn. What is the third law of abjuration? Yes, yes, you crazy old coot. The third law of abjuration. To dispel any spell or magical effect, you must meet it with a force that is its antithesis. Flashback as the silver light overcomes him.
And as you move the grimoire in front of you, in what is an attempt to deflect the blazing power of Equinox, it passes by, unfortunately, Azarax. But stops regardless. A defensive reaction. You had lifted your stump where your hand once was as your Lorekeeper ability. Where your hand once was is now a blazing, glowing hand of magical energy. The spell glove. And you are holding back the disintegrating force of Equinox's eye beam. It is then that something else occurs. Oh, go ahead first.
I'm just imagining this this blue energy of Azarax's new power, like meeting in the middle in an epic battle of wizards of old. Bzzz, he would shout out to his companions, "Strike him down now!"
And as the forces of Kilgannon and the forces of Advent begin to charge one final time, taxes rearing up, Card moving ahead perhaps, Azarax locks on to a target beyond Equinox. It perceives something on the horizon. Your mind goes back time ago to a memory of when you were making preparations within the Methanium.
Royce Jesslyn did not murder the King Regent. He was killed by a doppelganger in Jesslyn's form at the behest of Advent. Advent's leader, Equinox, threatens to bring the Nine Kingdoms to its knees. But fear not. True, and we have returned in Farwide's time of need. Stand with us, and Advent shall fall. Have hope, the Lorekeepers.
The words that you sent in a whispering scroll of your own making to the members of court you had rescued at River Break Keep. Now it seems that forces under their beckoning have followed Advent from Freedom Salvation to join the fray. Of cavalry crests the hill and charges through the shattered gates of Kilgannon. The mountain guard of Freedom Salvation have come to your aid, crashing like a wave into the flanks of the Silver Guard. We're back to the top of initiative, as cavalry just smash into their flanks. Azarax, what is it you're doing?
Azarax calls out, "Now, Widowmakers, strike!" As we see these shadowed forms from on top of the parapet leap off, he utters an arcane command, Sharoth, as they descend, as he casts Featherfall, as they descend down like spiders on cast webs. They fall upon the Advent forces from behind enemy lines, striking them down. As he does so, that would be my reaction to do that, to cast Featherfall, to try to have them stab those motherfuckers. As he does so, we see him from his belt. We hear shink. We see a thin black blade pulled out. It is a rapier of drow make. On the handle, it's like a spider of a basket hilt around his hand. He turns to Equinox, steps in with his hand out like this, and as he does so, stabs forward. I'm going to try to stab this motherfucker with the rapier.
By all means, make your attack.
I don't think that's going to hit him. That's a 7 plus 6 is a 13. I'm going to use my inspiration to try to hit him.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a 16 to hit.
So your wild attempts, and you are still holding back the destructive force of Equinox. And I like to imagine that you, with all of your might, are pushing against this energy to get closer and closer and closer. But Equinox is appearing to be able to hold you back, and you are not able to land a strike. Taxes, it is now your turn.
All right. So, question. Since Azarax is basically taking point right now, would I have the ability to flank him and get sneak attack damage?
You can flank him, but I don't think mechanically you get sneak attack damage taxes unless you know something I don't.
No, you're good. But yeah, no, it would be Marius though, but he's thighbrow. Not you. Okay, anyways, never mind. Yeah, I think Taxes, though, is going to see this, and he's going to take his opportunity. And really quick, does Equinox have, like, a group around them? You know, does he have a group around him that's, like, containing him or guarding him? Because if so, like, I want to cut through that.
Yeah, so he and Azarax are sort of in the center. Card, rising from his knees, is slightly to the right of him. They are basically in a circle, which is now closing in as the Silver Guard have attempted to try and fight back against the cavalry that have just smashed them in the flank. And now the remaining refugees and townspeople of Kilgannon are fighting on their flank as well. So... mishmash, but you could pretty much just fight your way to the center and get to Equinox if that's what you want.
Yeah, so what I'm going to do is actually provide a sort of a barrier for my team, for my group on our side. You see Taxes still in this like primal rage state. He jumps off of one of the, you can hear his claws kind of clack, 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 going across those rooftop boundaries that we had created and that they had laid down like ladders. And all of a sudden he just pounces up over and in front of where the line is, where they've come in, and the wing, like the whole wings sprout out, like just the whole fire and glory that is his rage and his fire, as he just comes out, and a spew of flame goes across this line of silver soldiers, making a wall of fire between them and us.
And that is so rad, I'm just going to say it hits them. They don't have anywhere to move anyway, so absolutely, roll it up.
All right, so it's just 2D, it's 2D6s for the right now. Yeah, okay, that's 9 damage, but I mean 9 damage across, like... Yeah. Oh, amazing. Plus the... Yeah.
And I believe with that once per day, you can make it so they have to make a save as well. Otherwise, they get thrown to the ground, as I recall.
Yes.
Get thrown to the ground. That's fine. They get thrown to the ground. They are ablaze on fire. Amazing. Card, through the fire, through the fury, you see Taxes blasting flames down. I'm so sorry. I've skipped you again. I'm so sorry. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we are going to go back because I keep skipping Marius's turn.
Card looks at Marius and wonders, what's Marius doing right now?
What's Marius doing right now?
I only wanted to have a turn because I rolled my death saving throw previously, and I rolled a natural 20 on my first roll.
So, oh my god. Marius,
like right?
Tell me everything. What do you see when you return to the realm of the living?
I think like his eyes are blearily open and he can't really hear anything. He missed that whole exchange. He just remembers being hit on all sides with this blazing blade. And he wakes up and he just says, oh, shit. And so he like begins to like groggily try and bring himself up. He can just hear like this sort of like tinny sort of as he like tries to pull himself up. And he just sees like fire and like magic everywhere that he looks, and he has no idea what's going on. But he swore that oath, and like his divine sense just like pulls his vision clearly. One-eyed, he sees Equinox, and he like begins to slowly crawl, I guess, his way towards him with the hammer back in his hand.
Amazing. Crawling closer and closer and closer. You can see like that you have to sort of throw yourself out of the way at one point as like a horse, now riderless, just gallops past you. Another man who is just ablaze from Tax's attack sort of stumbles past you on fire. We are still in the midst of a gruesome, bloody battle. Get ever closer and closer and closer. Card, you are watching as Azarax is holding off Equinox's power, but you're not sure how much longer he will be able to do so.
Card uses the anger that's been built up in his gut, and he thinks of the words that Azarax spoke about walking with drow and with dragons. And he decides that there is no non-guilty party here. And he takes his greatsword and charges towards Equinox, holding it aloft. Glistening in the fires that surround him is the black shard of Equinox's obsidian mask embedded in the sword. And I'm going to charge at him and try to hit him.
By all means.
Is he like facing away or something cool like that?
He is.
Yes, he is. Take 4 advantages.
You get advantage.
Great. Oh, cool. That would be just 10 damage. I didn't roll very well. But again, Card Kilgannon is an old man as he's facing down his father's killer, who seems to have not aged a day. And that's the last thing that Card thinks of as he strikes.
And an eerie mirroring is happening this night at Kilgannon, as once again of your bloodline of Kilgannon charges Equinox. But this time, the Lord of Advent is not able to connect with his disintegrating blast, as it is currently still locked in a power struggle with Azarax. And your great sword slams hard against, and Equinox stumbles. The blast that reverberates back from Azarax then hits him in the chest, and he stumbles back. And then he looks up. Fury blazing in his gaze. He turns around and he sees guard being wiped out by superior cavalry forces. He looks to the refugees that still stand fighting defiantly at your back. And then he looks at the Lorekeepers. The 4 Lorekeepers that still stand defiantly in front of him. Equinox looks to his side, and there is a blast of yellow energy as he rips a hole in reality and steps into the telling. There is a and he is gone. The last death throes of this battle hang in the air. There is nothing but the continual moan from the wounded and the crackle of the debris that is ablaze all around you. Look to each other. You're relieved to see that somehow Marius Hexenheim still draws breath. The defiant warrior who leapt over the wall itself to stop an army of 1,000 breaching. You look to Taxes, the Dragonborn, one who is now able to unleash of the beast. You see Azarax, a glowing blue hand, now in place of the one that was severed. the only individual to have stood in front of that disintegrating blast and walk away. And you see Card Kilgannon, the son of a Lorekeeper, still alive and having successfully defended his home from those who have destroyed his family. You dwell on everything that's just happened. And you dwell on how you've been lied to. It is a victory. But for you, Card, a slightly hollow one. As that is where we will end our session tonight.
Cool. Very cool.
Nice one, man.
Whew!
That was some shit right there. God damn.
I was extremely close to actual immediate death.
I was really hoping that you would die.
Yeah, me too.
I went
Really, I was praying for it.
I know. Oh, I know.
I really tried. I mean...
Dude, I was going to say, Lloyd rolled it, that 20.
Yeah.
That natural 20.
I was almost disappointed when I rolled it. I was like, oh.
For God's sake.
I know, yeah.
It would have been a good way to go, you know?
I'm still alive.
It would have been perfect.
It would have been good. But there we go. It's good that you're alive, too.
No, it is. For sure.
It is. It is good.
So, my God, let me just say before we sign off tonight that this is not the kind of session that you can do with just the run-of-the-mill players. I mean, if it had just been me saying random stuff, because that's all I was doing with this session, was just saying, this is happening in the fight. Oh, now they're doing this, and now they're doing this. This entire session was built by the four of you and your responses to the problems that I was putting in front of you. And I'm just absolutely blown away by each and every one of you and what you contributed to this game tonight. So thank you so much, guys. Unbelievable work from you all. Billion points of inspiration. Not literally. I know it stacks, but come on now. So we're going to sign out tonight. And first of all, we're going to sign off with Tax is the Dragonborn. Chad, my man.
Oh, my God.
And yeah, sign off, point of the game as well. Yeah.
Oh, my God. Okay. My heart is in my chest, like up here in my throat. But holy cow. Thank you. Thank you so much, Rob, for this game. Thank you to all of you guys who are my family. This is so fucking awesome. Point of the game. My favorite point of the game, hands down, was Marius being like the baller that he is and just being like, fuck it, I'm gonna die. Let's go to Hamtown and ham it up. And then just bip, bip, bip. The bad guy being able to just go 3 swings on you and end you, like that made him severe for me. I was like, I don't want to touch this dude. I don't. Because if Marius goes down, I know I'm fucked. I know I'm done after that. So that was definitely my high point of the night. Oh my God. Rob, you continue to kill it every single day. I don't know how this gets better from here, but dude, awesome. Just awesome. My name is Chad Nick, K-N-I-C-K. You can find me at Chad Nick on the YouTubes. And I'm out of here, dude. I just love this stuff. It's just too fucking awesome. It's just great.
Thanks, man. And yeah, amazing stuff. That speech, man. And the bloodthirsty, just ripping people apart. Like, I actually, like, not in a bad way, but I actually felt my stomach turn slightly when you were like, I'm ripping this guy apart. Man, it's some good stuff. Lloyd, my man.
Yeah, that was really fun. Just really good. There's 2 bits that I really loved. I loved the mouse story. It was fantastic. I just really, really loved it. Really like descriptive and poetic, I thought. And the other thing I really liked is that a God King can bleed and you can hit Equinox and he takes damage. And that's all I need to know going forward, you know? Like that it's possible
Yep.
I'm not afraid.
Yeah, and I think it was due time. Mouse in the bucket thing, man, like that. Yeah, but for you, Lloyd, I think for me, just an outstanding understanding of how battles go down, man. Like there's no one like you that knows how that shit goes down. I love it, absolutely. Just amazing stuff, man. And speaking of the mouse in the bucket, Barker.
Thanks, man. Yeah, that was this game was great. My name is Barker, by the way. It wasn't a long time into the game when I kind of closed my player's handbook, proverbially, because I kind of realized that this was a little bit different from other sessions. We had a little more narrative control, and it wasn't long before I started testing the boundaries of what Rob would let me do. And so my favorite moment, my favorite two moments are kind of glass-shattering moments, I think, in this whole campaign. And the first one is when I blew up the tomb with the Lux bomb, because I was like, you know what, if Rob is going to let me just obliterate this massive swell of Advent soldiers and just let me narrate the hell out of this and then say, okay, yes, and continue on. I was just like, you know, I like to push the boundaries a little bit, and you letting me do that was awesome. The next one, obviously, was reminded me of a time in the Provokers campaign when Dice, my character of Dice was in danger of getting burned or in danger of dying to this dragon, and Tim's character, Durgan, decided at, I think, 1 hit point or something to run in the way and tackle me and save my life, save Dice's life. And it was one of these moments where the roll of the die could have gone the other way, and Tim's character would have died right there, and probably mine. And it was a moment where it occurred to me that it's possible. That proved it to me that the stakes are real. And when you knocked Marius out of the fight as Equinox, as Equinox should, just bam, 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 that did the same thing in my mind. All right, okay, this is real. We're not messing around in this game. And so those are my favorite times, my favorite moments.
Absolutely. And yeah, he's got to be dangerous. He's got to be able to kill you. And I tried. Yeah. he didn't quite kill him outright. But I did try. I tried my best.
Yeah, my favorite moments were me cheating and you following the rules, Rob. Those were the best parts of the game.
I mean, I had a conversation with Lloyd about this because Lloyd runs quite a lot of mass combats in Against the Shadow, a wonderful Lord of the Rings campaign you can find on Jarl DM, and had a conversation with him about the mechanical applications of a mass combat. And early on, I was like, always done it, and you've just gotta wing it and make it narrative. If you keep on relying on dice rolls, you're not going to get anywhere, and it's much better that way, especially when I've got you guys. So yeah, absolutely. Tried to kill you, didn't manage it this time. And over to our blue alien himself, Lorekeepers, man, take it away.
We're not men, we're dragons.
Yes.
The mouse in the bucket, leaping off the fucking wall to smash that fucking battering ram.
Oh,
that speech by Equinox, which was like right at the point in the campaign where, like, I feel like it was just perfectly timed for that reveal. We knew some shit was going down. We didn't know everything for for you to fill in the blanks in such a narrative way at such a powerful moment. It was just great storytelling. And when you played that fucking sound clip of my voice, I did that thing that everybody does where they hear their own voice. They're like, who's that little kid hanging out with my friends with that weird ass voice? And that Battle of the Bastards moment where, like, you know, all seemed lost and then these motherfuckers came because of something that we did. It was great, man. I just loved it. I love playing this game. My name is Lorekeepers. I make videos, Lorekeepers Planetoid, and I can't wait for the next session. This shit was epic.
Absolutely. In terms of the voice clip, I decided to do it because it was the only thing that you guys had in the bag that has sort of been in the background, that you sent this letter for help from those guys and you hadn't heard anything. So we'll have a bit more development from that later on, I'm sure. Next session, not next campaign. Yeah, and yeah, that was just great, man. All the things that you did in that, man. Like, there's so many cool stuff that you did in that. I can't even think. But for reference, go watch the session again. So all that remains for me to do is to say thank you ever so much to our audience for watching, as ever. And for those of you after the fact, if you like this video, give it a like. If you'd like to see more like it, then give me a subscribe or not. We're all friends here. I would wink, but you can't see me.
I'm winking too.
Beloved Lorekeepers to do
both
that
eyes
for me. And Chad, you said I don't know how things are going to get better. Well, now with tonight's revelation, I think things, sadly, are only going to get worse. Take it easy. I hope that all of your performances are up to standard.